Welcome to the Itential Proof of Concept demonstration, where we'll show you how to deliver rapid time to value using modular automation frameworks with the Itential Automation Platform. If we take a look at a typical customer end-to-end automation, we find an interesting pattern that starts to emerge. And what we see is that the focus is typically on the 10% or the execution of the actual network change. However, that's really a small portion of the overall end-to-end automation process that really needs to go on. So that 90% is split up generally around 70% at the very beginning, where you have prep work, where you need to create change request tickets in your ITSM system. Scheduling and approvals go along with that. Then next is another phase is a pre-execution phase. So this follows a typical pattern where you need to do a series of pre-checks and making sure that the environment's right for the changes that are about to be made. Then there's the actual execution, which we talked about is the focus, and around 10%. And then generally about 20% follow-up tasks, things like post-checks, making sure that the changes that were made are made correctly and all services are up and running, integration with any kind of other systems like IPAMs. And a large portion of this also includes notifications to different groups using whatever messaging systems those groups use, and then closing out work order tickets as part of the final step in the process. With the insight of understanding that end-to-end automation process and all the phases inside of it, we can now take that and build modular end-to-end network automation frameworks that help customers accelerate the creation of more automations with minimal effort. And that's what we're going to show you today in this demonstration. We're starting off here in the Itential Automation Platform. From here, our first step is going to be going into the Automation Studio. Now, the Automation Studio is where networking teams can build network automations with little to no programming experience using a low-code drag-and-drop methodology. And so we'll go there now. Now that we're in Automation Studio, on the left-hand side, you can see a number of sections there. The top one is automations, and under automations is a list of the current automations that are available in the platform. And we're going to click on the Demo E2E framework. So this is an end-to-end automation framework that we've built. And as we pull it up, let's take a closer look at what's going on here. So starting at the beginning on the left-hand side, you'll see that from start, we go to a task called Change Request Management. And this is a child job. And so what that means is that this is actually calling another automation workflow that's independent of this. And its focus and function is to create a change request ticket to the ITSM system. Now, think about it. Every enterprise organization's ecosystem of systems are going to be completely different from the ecosystem of other systems. So one might use Jira, another organization might use ServiceNow. So keeping these modular and called within this overall workflow makes it easy not only for reusability, but for also changing down the line if any kind of IT systems change. So the very first step in that process is interfacing with the change request system. And in this case, we're actually going to use both ServiceNow and Jira. After that task is completed, we do a series of queries where we're manipulating some data between the API calls of these tasks. And then we're calling another task called broadcast notifications. And again, this is another child job. And when we think back at that overall end-to-end process, a large majority of time is spent in notifications and validations and authorizations. And so one of the things we've modularized here is the ability to do broadcast notifications to different groups through different systems. So for instance, we can use Slack, we can use Microsoft Teams, we can use email and any number of communication or notification systems. Again, supporting the ecosystem that any particular IT organization has. And so certain groups might prefer certain notification systems for their use. So having this modular and giving organizations the ability to kind of plug and play as they need is very important. So this child job, like the change request management child job, is another automation that we call from within here. So moving from there, we go into the network services layer task. So that's that green task in the middle, and it's a stub. So in this case, it's an example. It's not doing anything. And the reason why that is because this is the piece we want to replace in this framework that allows the networking practitioner to focus on the things that are relevant for making the network change for that use case. And so by doing this and modularizing everything else, we allow them to focus on that 10%, build the network automation that's relevant here. And this allows somebody that's even net new to the team to start to build network automations, and keeping everything else the same because they follow a pattern of change requests, broadcast notifications, change request updates, more notifications, potentially a rollback, and then an end to the automation. And so by decoupling this and letting them focus on this piece, now we're allowing the network automation teams to build new automations very, very quickly without having to worry about all of the other required and very important parts to the end-to-end network automation. So now we can take a look at this end-to-end framework for automation in totality. We can see where we're allowing the network practitioner to focus on the network services layer and the associated rollback mechanisms that are important for this automation, but then allowing them to not have to focus on any changes or anything that needs to be done across the other 90% of the time, which is integrating with change request systems and broadcast notifications. And this allows them to very quickly build automations that are end-to-end in nature without having to focus on all of the end-to-end pieces that are kind of outside of their wheelhouse. And this also allows the same framework to be used across multiple teams within networking so that they can continue to focus on those relevant technical networking pieces, build those out, and reuse this framework over and over and over again. So now they can really start to accelerate the amount and the number of network automations that their team is creating. And these are truly end-to-end in nature. So they encompass the entire 100% of the time spent for that process and not just the 10% of the time. And doing so without a whole lot of worry outside of their technical domain. Itential has a series of freely available pre-built automations that are available for all of our customers to import directly into the automation platform. And so what we can do now is we can take that network services layer task, and instead of building something net new, let's import an existing pre-built automation from that library into the platform and then immediately start using that in place of that network services layer task. So instead of modifying this particular automation directly, we're going to make a copy of it. So we can clone this automation, and let's create a new one called DNS end-to-end demo, and we'll save it. And now we can modify this automation and make the changes we want. So in this step, we're going to remove this network services layer stub, and we're going to replace it with a pre-built automation that we import directly into the Itential Automation Platform. Let's delete the network services layer task so that we can free that space up for a new task that's going to come from the Infoblox DNS pre-built automation. So from here, we'll click on this second tab, which takes us to the Itential Automation Platform main screen, and we want to go to Admin Essentials. So in Admin Essentials, we have the ability to do a lot of management tasks for the platform. And one of those tasks involves importing pre-built automations from our developer website. And so on the left-hand side, if we click on Prebuilts, we get a list of the Prebuilts that are already installed on this particular installation of the platform. But if we click on the cloud icon, and now we can get a list of the available pre-builts from the catalog that we have freely available online. We can scroll through them here, or we can search on the search bar, and if we query for DNS, then we should be able to see the available Infoblox DNS management pre-builts. So let's install that. So that's not been on the system. We're going to click this. It's going to pull this down and install it in the system. And it's going to give us a whole lot of assets, including automations and documentation. And so if we go back, We can take a look at this here. Now that it's installed, it'll show up in our panel. And if we click on this, we can see the list of assets that we have available to us. Now we can see all of the different elements and assets that make up this pre-built automation. That includes JSON forms and a variety of workflows that take advantage of the different management features for Infoblox DNS management, as well as documentation that includes descriptions of all the workflows and everything you need to understand how to use and leverage these pre-builts within your automations. Now let's go back to the Automation Studio and take a look at that DNS end-to-end demo automation that we've built here. The first thing we want to do is create a new child job. And so we're going to add that using a drag and drop methodology here. We've just added a new task, and this child job is going to run one of the pre-builts that we've just imported. And so let's call this create DNS record, because that's the change that we're going to make in this automation. And we can search for a workflow that we've imported. If we just do a DNS, we can look for the DNS management for Infoblox. And we can highlight that and select that. And because data is coming from a form that we're going to be using, we're going to tell the task to use the data that comes from that form. And we'll take a look at that in a moment. So now that the task is created, we can build our transitions so that now it becomes part of the overall end-to-end workflow. So now coming off of the broadcast notifications, it's going to transition into our task that we've imported, which is going to create a DNS record. And then from there, it will continue on to the rest of the workflow. It's important to recognize what we've done here. We've only made a change to a single task. And that task was that 10% of the actual work for this particular use case. And we've leveraged the existing modular nature of this end-to-end automation for that 90% of the whole process. And by making that single task change, and in this case, we've just simply imported a pre-built automation that already existed, we've created very, very quickly a net new end-to-end network automation. Now let's move to another section of the Itential Automation Platform called Automation Catalog. Automation Catalog is where we can publish any of the workflows that we've created within Automation Studio and make those available in an easily accessible and secure way to people within the IT organization or even outside the organization. This is where you can really set up self-service in a controlled and a secure way for all the automations that your network team may create. In Automation Catalog, on the left-hand side, we have a list of all the published automations in the system. Let's search for DNS, which will bring up the DNS Management Infoblox catalog entry. Now, this was imported as part of that pre-built that we did just a moment ago. And we're going to reuse this catalog entry, but we're going to change the automation name. And instead of using the pre-built automation, we're going to use our new DNS end-to-end demo automation. And we're also going to update the form so that we have the information we need to complete the automation. And now we can save this and then run this new automation catalog entry manually. After we run it, we can see the form that's presented to us. And what we want to do is fill out this create a record. So because we're adding a new DNS entry in a record, we've already pre-filled this for the demo. So we're going to create a new host name called sales.itential.io with that information. And then as we scroll down in the form, we actually have some options for change request systems. And this is coming from the end-to-end framework. So we're going to keep ServiceNow and Jira enabled because I'm going to show how we're integrating with that through that framework. And then we're also going to keep broadcast notification enabled because that's going to allow us to see notifications through Microsoft Teams. Now we've started the job, and now we can view the job in real time to see step by step how it's going through the automation. And so it's progressed very quickly. It's gotten to do the change management function, so that particular child job. So if I go to the demo notifications, we should be able to see that the IAP job automation status has been requested for this DNS request. So this is part of the notification, And since the tickets have been created in both ServiceNow and Jira, if I click on ServiceNow, we can see that the Itential ticket for this particular network DNS change is running, and it's a net new state. And if I go over to Jira, we can see that at the same time, because of the modular workflow, we can pass this information both to Jira and ServiceNow simultaneously. So now that Jira has a ticket, and it's actually going through and creating the DNS A record through info blocks. By clicking into the Create DNS A Record task, we can look and see how far that particular child process has progressed. Now, this is part of that pre-built that we imported in earlier. And you'll notice that at the very top, the running status for view data is the active task right now. And this is because this is a manual task. Now, we've put this in here intentionally because honestly, the automation creates and works so fast that we need a moment to stop and look at the status of everything to see things. So we've created a manual task here that we can click on work task to give us an opportunity to see what's going on step by step. So from here, I can click on work task, and we can see that the results show us that the A record was successfully completed in info blocks. If I click OK, it will progress the automation forward, and we can go back and take a look at what stage it's at. Now it's doing change request management updates. So we can go and look at our demo notifications in Microsoft Teams, and we can see that we do have the initial DNS request, and this is going to be updated because part of our process of the end-to-end process is close the tickets out and then do a real-time update that says now the DNS changes were complete. So if we go into ServiceNow and update the status, we'll see that the state is now closed where it was open before and new. And if we go to Jira, the ticket has been closed there. And now if we go back to Microsoft Teams, we can see that the DNS request was completed. So that notification worked. And finally, if we go to info blocks and update here, let's just verify to make sure that the A record was created for sales.itential.io. And indeed, it is there. So having validated that everything was made on the info blocks for that A record, we can go back and just take a look at the job, and we can see that there's a final rollback decision task. That's a manual task. And in this case, we're just going to end it, which will end the automation and complete the entire job. Using the Itential Automation Platform, we've demonstrated how you can create a modular end-to-end automation framework, deliver rapid automation capabilities with Itential's pre-built use cases, being able to accelerate the creation of new automations using the drag-and-drop low-code automation studio, and how to integrate your network ecosystem with your IT systems so that you have the freedom to pick and choose that ecosystem, because every ecosystem is going to be different based off of the choices that the organization makes. So being able to integrate that is incredibly important. And finally, using Automation Catalog, enabling the easy creation, publication, and consumption of network services by other IT teams with a self-service network API. So every Automation Catalog entry can be accessed through a native API. Using Itential's automation platform, you can leverage modular end-to-end network automation frameworks along with pre-built automations and quickly deliver rapid time to value for any of your organization's network automation use cases. We really appreciate your time today. If you're interested in starting a free trial, feel free to visit us at itential.com/free-trial, or feel free to contact us through any other means here. Thank you very much.